Just comb your hair, go and wash your face. It's been a real long time since you've seen the light of day. So let thoughts come as they may, beauty and parade. Everybody all smiles when you're back in the seat again. On aboard the petty express to a beautiful darkness. It's full steam ahead to ride the rails to our next destination. Yeah!
Hey guys, it's Mo from Mo in the Deep End, and we are here for day 3, part 2, the eternity. I don't know if it's just me, but defense attorney Shatner is Shatnering to levels that have hitherto unshatnered. I have never. But you guys, I have to show you. Okay, totally nerding out right now, but again, in a total copy of Baker, I have bendies. Oh my gosh. I know, it's incredibly ridiculous to be excited about this, but I totally am, not gonna lie. So now when, they tried to describe something, I can just use the bendy guys, which will be awesome. So if I remember correctly, and I haven't, completely blocked it out because I was so traumatized by the waste of time, I believe we are getting ready to go to the actual criminal arson investigator. Now, I do feel like we should have had a lunch break somewhere. I don't know. It feels like this is an eternity and a half. So let's get into this so we can get out of it. The only way out is through, and the Petty Express will get you there. I'm your conductress of Snark Mo, and we will get going on this.
Thank you, sir.
Run, dude, run, or they're going to ask you more questions.
Thank you, Your Honor. If you fall down, will you to the stand, please?
Who? Okay, you know who she looks like right there? Yardley Smith. Okay, so Jem, I'm going to let you in on a secret. I got a new bra, and it's like one of those, look, having developed at like 11D boobs, I have had an uncomfortable and disassociated relationship with them my entire life. But I decided to get a push-up bra, which I never have before, mostly because I already have big boobs. Like, if you push them up, I mean, we've all seen the Renaissance Fair, they just, you know, if you wear a corset and you have big boobs, they just go up to your chin, and you basically have a chin shelf. So I never thought I would, get one. But I got one and I was like, ooh, I have cleavage. And then I am so Twitter-pated about, not being an e-thought and stuff. So I had Mr. Mo come up and see how I looked on camera, because I was like, look, I must show a little bit more boobage than I normally do. And there's like a line for me of like, ooh, I have a figure again. Ooh, let's show that off. And like showing off stuff that would make Mr. Mo uncomfortable. He, of course, rolled his eyes to me and he's like, that is not bad. He was just like, okay. And I was like, look, I'm trying to be a good wife. Normally I'm a sarcastic, bitchy wife. I would like 1 point. It really is. So let's get on and see who is next. Since she was talking away from the mic, I don't know, but I do believe I kind of fast forwarded through. Okay, I kind of fast forwarded through, and it looks like it is actually the police arson investigator. And we might finally get into the meat and potatoes of, what indicated to them that this was an arson, that there was accelerant use. if we're going to get any testing. Because, dear Lord, if I hear one more question about if Linda was, interrogated in a car, if it was muddy, where the terrain was, if this is a split level house, I am going to pull my hair out. And okay, I have to say this. Now, we don't see a lot of her, but the state's assistant is just so super de duper button cute. I mean, she looks just put together, cute, sweet, fun. I love, love, love her look. Fashion advice with Mo. I can't tell you how she pulls it off, but
that the
it's
testimony
good.
you're about to give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Please have a seat, and when you're settled, I'll have you give us your full name and spell your last, please.
Is Don Galooze, Goulooze.
Do what now?
Mr. Galuz, what is your current occupation?
I am a deputy with the Berrien County Sheriff's Department assigned to commercial enforcement with the road department.
How long have you been in that role?
12 years.
And what did you do prior?
I was road patrol for the Berrien County Sheriff's Department.
And what was your role or your occupation in January 7th of 2007?
I was a road lieutenant on the day shift and just assigned a supervisory position for the Sheriff's Department.
That's still Berrien County Sheriff's Department?
Yes,
And were you called to assist with an investigation of a house fire on January 7th?
yes,
And actually, I believe you didn't go out on January 7th. It was the next day. Is that correct?
correct.
So it would have been January 8th of
January 8th.
2007? And why were you called to assist?
Part of my extra duties is I was an accident investigator and we had equipment for measuring crime scenes.
No, so I believe what the state said, and I believe the state was a bit salty, and I can understand it. I mean, you have a case, you have people lined up to call witnesses that make sense in both your strategy and, to get everyone's schedules worked out. So the state is actually being a little extra petty and making her wait several more days because she said, basically, I have experts, I have witnesses that I already have lined up. It's not my fault she didn't show up for the subpoena. So she can, chill out in jail. Now, Jedi Jess has informed me and is a reliable source that said that, she popped hot on that drug test. She might or might not be a method actor, if you catch my drift.
Accident scenes and everything, we call it a total station. It's a laser measuring device. And they had, Van Buren had requested me to come out to a site from, at that point, was a house fire, and measure the scene for them.
So is this something that requires specialized training?
Yes,
And is this also a specialized piece of equipment?
yes.
And not every department has this piece of equipment, is that correct?
No, at that time, the Berrien County Sheriff's Department had one, and Michigan State Police had a few of the units.
And you called it a total station, is that correct?
Yes.
And what does this total station do?
Total station measures with a laser beam the items that you want
Lasers?
for a CAD drawing or a scale drawing. So you would set up the tripod, that would be the control point, and then you would pick a reference point and everything from those 2 points to the object you wanted to measure. So it's like a triangulation. And as long as that reference point is there, you could go back today, set up in that same location and put everything back in those spots.
Okay, sir, I don't know who hasn't told you this, and this is not an April Fool's joke, but fire your barber. I don't know what this look is that you have, but it's not good. You could be very, very much more handsome. Find you a barber that likes people, that doesn't hate you, and go find him and tip him well. I'm guessing you skimped on the tips, or you do it yourself with a roller. I'm just saying, love yourself enough to go to a barber that likes you.
So it's a way of just getting accurate measurements of whatever you're trying to measure on that scene?
Yes,
And like you said, you could measure it back then, and then you could actually still go back with that same piece of equipment and have the same measurements today.
yes,
Did you go to the scene at 66598 County Road 215 Lawrence to do these measurements?
yes,
And you used that total station?
yes.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as people's proposed exhibit number 8. There are 4 pages there. Could you just flip through them and tell me if you recognize them?
I was so glad
Yes,
when I get
these
back to my
are,
quiet,
Copies of the
Thinking
scale
about-
drawings that I did. The full scene one is in a scale drawing of, I believe, 1 inch is like 65 feet. And the other ones,
that's what he said. Giggity.
were in a scale, I'm supposed to be 1 inch equals 20 feet. So these are my drawings.
Those
That's
are the
what she
drawings that you
said.
did based on your total station measurements?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, I'd move to people's exhibit number 8 into evidence.
What in the time warp? Was that a quantum leap?
Yes, and there are 4 pages, Your Honor. Permission to publish? So I'm going to have you go, we'll put the first one up on the screen. So we have up the first page. Could you describe this for the jury and what we're looking at? And I do have a pointer if you need me to point out anything in particular.
Okay. This is all the measurement points that I took on that date. This is the whole scene from the roadway to the fence in the backyard.
And so I want to point out to you the long line going across the center of the page. Can you see that?
Yes,
What is that depicting?
that is the driveway.
And I want to point out then you have a marking here that I've got my pointer on just underneath the driveway kind of section. Can you see that?
The circular one would be a pile of rocks that were there at the scene.
And then just to the right of the pile of rocks, I see that there's a double line. Can you describe what the jury what they're looking at here?
Those were tire tracks that were pointed out to me by the detective there, that he wanted those measured.
And were those flagged?
Yes.
And I'm going to go down to the bottom right-hand corner. You can see there's like 3 little boxes down in the right-hand corner. What are we looking at here? What does that drawing depict?
One of them was a trailer and the other one were some vehicles, if I remember right, that were just sitting there, and they had pointed out to have those just included in the drawing.
And right then above the vehicles, there's like a V shape. What is that?
That would have been one of my control points, so that's where I would have set up the tripod with the laser.
And there's a dot in the tire tracks. Can you describe to the jury what that dot is in the tire tracks?
That is where I was directed that the victim had been laying. There was a flag there, so I had measured that also.
That was also flagged for you by law enforcement?
Yes.
And I want to go to the square then at the end of the driveway. Is that the house?
Yes.
And what is immediately to the right of the house where I have the red dot?
That was also a marked area where they said the van had been parked, and it was no longer there when I got there.
Somebody's telling me off of the truth.
I can rephrase the question.
Okay.
Was that section also marked for you by law enforcement?
Yes.
And you were also told to measure that location as well?
Yes.
And did the tire tracks that were marked lead to that location?
The same general location, yes.
Yeah, Old Line Red, I'm really confused about the pattern of travel because I'm trying to figure out, so was she going a long way around this way? Why is she in the back of the house? Was the van parked with these cars and then she had to, I don't get how you get the van here. Unless you start out here, go down because she thought maybe he'd run out of the walk-in. It makes no sense. So the defense is really going to have to make this make sense. Part of the defense in this case is almost akin to a self-defense. Linda is going to either have to get on the stand or the defense is going to have to make such a good case that they are able to paint a story of how this happened that is reasonable, because none of this sounds reasonable. And that is going to be the big thing that this defense is going to have to deal with, apart from the fact that they are insufferable. And I'm actively dreading when their cross comes up.
And I want to take your attention to the bottom line across the page, at the bottom of the page, going from the left-hand side to the right-hand side of the page. Does that depict anything in particular or just the property line?
Just, that was all fenced in. The whole area had been fenced in.
So wherever the outside border that we're looking at here, or is it just the rear and then the side?
Protection foundation.
He was on site looking at a fence, Your Honor.
Overall that.
Thank you.
Foundation for me.
So the line on the bottom, you said that was a fence?
Yes, yes,
The line on the right-hand side of the page, was that a fence?
yes.
And then were these lines fenced?
Denise, I am not sure. I have not had time to look deeply through the information that oh gosh, Jedi just sent me. So I will have to go through and ask or look at that to see if she did. I would assume not. If she had ineffective counsel, they probably counseled her not to. So yeah, the house is on a hill, so basically you walk into the house and you're on the main level, and then since it's on a hill, you go downstairs and you're kind of within the hill. It's kind of called, I always call them hobbit houses, but I guess it's called a walkout Michigan basement. That being said, this doesn't make sense to me unless the car was parked over here, but why wouldn't she just go out the driveway? Like, I don't understand. I don't. I need the defense to make it, understandable.
Fences or something else?
Those are fences also.
And you didn't mark any other tire tracks?
No,
And did you see any other tire tracks?
yes.
What other tire tracks did you see on scene?
I saw just other indentations in the soft ground that they did not mark anything. They said it was from fire equipment.
Protection.
They were not flagged.
They were not flagged, yes.
That's sustained hearsay.
So you didn't mark any marks that were not flagged.
Correct.
I'm going to have you look at our next drawing. Look at the next drawing. And what are we looking at here?
The same drawing except blown up. It's in a larger scale, approximately 1 inch to 20
Oh,
feet.
thank God.
And this has all your dimensions on it as well?
Yes, measurements from the house out, yes.
And you said some of the drawings have different scales. Is that correct? Like 1 inch equaled so many feet?
Right, as the diagram gets blown up, so the scale is blown up also.
And are those marked then on the drawings?
They were on the original ones. I do not see them on these.
So when you blow it up, what would 1 inch equal then on the blown up drawings?
They were to equal 1 inch equals 20 feet.
I'm going to go ahead and advance to the third picture. And what are we looking at here?
Look, I'm not a mathologist, but if the ratio and the scale is 1 inch equals 20 feet, even if you blow it up to Kingdom Come like she has here, it's still going to equal 1 inch equals 20 feet. Or look, I'm bad at math. I could be wrong at this. I'm just saying, I think even, I want to say irregardless so bad, but I know it's not a word. Anywho, this is math. I'm not even going to comment no more because it's math.
It's the same scale drawing except blown up even more, and it has measurements on it.
So this one you did the actual measurements from the house to the victim?
Correct.
And that's where the flags were that you marked?
Yes.
That were marked. I'm going to go to the next drawing, and what are we looking at here?
Same increased scale of the house and a distance to where the flags were marked.
So the distance of the 19 feet 3 inches, is that the distance between the van and the house?
I guess the objector on the van wasn't present when he did this.
I'll overrule that objection for, overrule it.
Thank you, Your Honor. So we're looking at 19 feet 3 inches?
Correct.
Impressive.
Were there any tire tracks that were flagged by the fence area?
No.
I have no further questions for this witness, Your Honor.
Oh God, please. You know,
Look
it's
at that
like
third picture that we were.
it's a fucking Sophie's choice. I mean, you know, honestly, honest to God, it's like whichever dice you roll, you're gonna roll a one. If you ever watch Timcast IRL and Ian is on, you know, the long curly haired hippie guy that's kind of perpetually 14, he either comes out with a gem or a turd. And with these lawyers, it's like the South Park episode where he had to choose, you have to choose between a giant douche and a turd sandwich. It almost makes living with PETA a thought that I could bear.
We're looking at the enlarged one.
Yes,
See that? And it says victim. You see that?
yes.
Todd Stermer was not laying there when you did the measurements, correct?
No, he was not.
Okay. So you don't know the orientation of Todd Stermer.
This is what he was described as.
That's all based on what officers told you, correct?
Correct.
All right. You would have no firsthand knowledge of any orientation of Todd Stermer, correct?
Correct.
And you would have no firsthand knowledge of the van orientation from your firsthand knowledge, fair?
Only from the flags and the tire marks.
Only from the secondhand testimony or statements from the police officers as to which direction the van was facing, right?
Correct.
All right. I do notice that if we were, you correct me if I'm wrong, if we were curious as to the path Linda Stermer took before Todd Stermer was ever impacted, your diagrams don't help us, do they?
I don't follow you.
You were given points of reference with respect to the final resting spot of Todd Stermer, correct?
Correct.
Your documents don't show, were you aware at all that Todd Stermer was earlier in a different place
No,
and had been dragged by some neighbors by a boat to his final resting spot?
no.
So your drawings can't help us if we're curious about where was Todd Stermer initially, fair?
Fair. Correct.
But he wasn't asked to make a recreation of the scene or do a reenactment or reconstruction. He was simply asked to take the, you know, magic laser, do, you know, like, I don't know, ditto, olive for ditto, and then, you know, put the little line graphs on a piece of paper, and that's what he did. These defense attorneys are pissing me off because it is an effective tool, but what they are basically doing are asking them questions outside of their, you know, individual part of this case. So they are making him look stupid, or the witness look stupid, because he didn't do these things, but he wasn't asked to. So it is a trick. I don't like this. If you have the facts on your side, then don't do underhand stuff. I don't like bullshit from the state, and I don't like bullshit from the defense. Come at me with facts, and I'm here. But, you know, don't do this underhanded, like, smarmy ridiculousness, because it's petty, and we only do petty here on the Petty Express. But we will match petty energy, which is why I make fun of these lawyers all the time.
That's a mischaracterization of testimony. He's testified that he went by the flags, and that's where the body was located from the flags.
He has
He's
testified.
categorizing it as to talk about where the body had been moved. There were no flags where the body was moved.
That's the whole point.
Yeah, I'll overrule it.
Thank you. You marked where there were flags, correct?
Correct.
And there were no flags, to your knowledge, of anything else except Todd Stermer's final resting spot, correct?
Correct.
So we're curious about where Todd Stermer,
That's a miscategorization again. It's not Todd Stermer's final resting place. It's not what was flagged, and that's in from prior testimony and prior pictures that the place of the impact before the body was moved was flagged.
is there an objection coming, Your Honor?
Yeah, I'll allow you to address it with the witness and redirect.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. As far as you know, this is the one and only spot where you were told Todd Stermer was, correct?
That's where it was marked.
And these tire tracks that we see don't show anything except from that point to the back, toward the back of the house, am I right?
That's the way it was marked, yes, sir.
And so there's nothing on your drawings that would help us show the path of travel of Linda Stermer and her van before you see these tire tracks, am I right?
It goes with the direction that the going down around the side of the house.
Before you were directed to this point where you first have the tire tracks, are we clear on this?
You know, this lawyer pisses me off to no end because, you know, I am a connoisseur of the Smexy book, the semi-shirtless man, you know, Navy SEAL, you know, / werewolf book. And this man has the voice for audio narration of the smutty book, the male narrations. Usually these books are perspective or point of view. So I'm just saying I could listen to this man read a book, not lawyer, read a book, but it just pisses me off. It's like God gave you that voice and you're not using it to make smut. You're pissing me off instead, which is the opposite of the feeling I would like to have when I listen to your voice. Butthole.
Yes.
Right. You don't have anything up above that to the east, am I right?
No.
Am I right?
Yes.
Okay. So you can't tell us or help our jury with any path that Linda Stermer traveled before this point here, am I right?
Correct.
Oh, by the way, you don't know what caused the fire, do you?
That's not my specialty, sorry.
It's cross-examined, just two questions. You don't know what caused the fire, fair?
That's an answer, objection.
We didn't get an answer.
We get the answer, well, you can ask it once and then move on.
Oh, hell no. The judge better pull this trial over. These two are acting like ridiculous siblings with that, I'm not touching you. And as a mama, I can tell you, look, this judge has dealt with this bullshit for 3 days. And there is going to come a point where she is going to unleash a holy can of bitch fire on these two, acting like ridiculous, mostly the defense. Look, I'm going to say this, and normally I don't say this because I'm fully Dale Gribble, but the state has been pretty good on this trial and really have only gotten, snippy or snappy when dealing with the defense's retardation. And yes, I use that word because I'm taking it back. I'm not making fun of anyone. I'm not discriminating against anyone. And as someone who is a cripple herself, I have a pass. Fuck it. I have been tortured by these absolute mumbling Muppets all day. And I'm glad I have y'all with me because I'm telling you, these two lawyers, I was checking to make sure I didn't smell burnt toast. And then I hear that they want to make, Aslan from, the Chronicles of Narnia, Meryl Streep. I'm just like, you know what? I'm done. Mo is going to say something. So I do have a ranty video up, which, I could have been reading the whole, case file and why this got overturned, but I was making a ranty video. I apologize, but look, I was entrapmented because that is my favorite, from childhood. The Chronicles of Narnia books have always been a great escape, and you can go back to them as an adult and they're just as good. And I don't want to see them ruined, and it pisses me off that Hollywood keeps taking things and just mutating them for their own needs, with no care for the people that have actually held these things in their heart. Yes, it's just a make-believe story. It's just a child story. But daggone it. It's a piece of a childhood. It's memories. It's lessons learned. And I'm so pissed off with Hollywood disrespecting all of our childhoods, all of our IPs, all of the things that we have gotten really attached to. And I apologize for
And
the
you don't know
feral
where the fire
noises.
started in the house, right?
I don't know what he's doing.
1 second.
Oh, please be done. Please be done. Please be done.
Did you meet law enforcement out there?
Yes.
And so you were directed where to take measurements from? And you were then directed where the flags were placed
Correct.
by the law enforcement that had attended and was out there?
Yes.
Do you recall who was out there with you?
Detective Lieutenant Stump. There was another officer out there. I don't remember his name. And then the fire marshal, Scott Leeway, was out there.
Thank you. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
This has been, is this the 8th?
This was the 8th. I think I was out there a little after 8 o'clock in the morning.
Thank you, nothing else.
Anything else?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
Jury, any questions of him? No? May he be excused from his subpoena,
I would
Counsel?
ask that you please be excused, Your Honor.
Oh, I've got a question.
Oh. Oh, for the love of God, what is he doing in there?
Any objection, Counsel?
Yes.
Ah.
I'm good with it.
Thank you, sir. You're all done. And I think I'll
I will say he's making me not like Detroit, but they made Detroit pizza, and as a deep dish, kind of thick crust gal, Detroit pizza, thumbs up. Chicago pizza, y'all, I don't get it. I don't get it. I mean, it's yummy when you eat it, but it's like soggy soup pizza stuff. I just don't get it. That being said, if someone made me a Chicago's pizza, I would eat it. Because mostly I wouldn't have had to cook it.
take that for me, thank you. On the side of me, and
Run
find
before
it.
they ask you
Call
questions.
David Akers to the stand, please.
Ooh, he looks like Kojak.
Do you solemnly swear affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this cause will be the truth?
Okay, I know this is weird and I'm not really a Trekkie, but I really love listening to Razorfist break down, was it Deep Space Nine? Okay, this is not nice, but I just imagine this is what the guy that dressed up as the Ferengi looked like. I know it's terrible to compare this guy to a Ferengi, but I swear, that's all I see, and I don't know why. This is how my brain works. For the two of you who understood that Star Trek reference, thank you.
Truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes, sir. Thank you. Please have a seat, and when settled, give us your full name, spell your last name. And you don't know that microphone in front of you also agree.
Excuse me. My name is David Hayhurst. Last name is Hayhurst.
Oh gosh, who's the guy that does Ratatouille? Patton. What is his name? The guy who does Ratatouille. Well, Patton Oswalt. This man is Patton Oswalt, and now all I'm going to think about is the Ratatouille rat. To be fair, it might make this trial more watchable. They need to figure out in StreamYard how you can make them a cat. Because, honest to God, I would watch trials if they just were all animated cats. That being said, I'd watch a lot of things if it was just animated cats, so I don't know if trials would be my discernment.
URST.
Thank you, Anna. Mr. Hayhurst, what is your current occupation?
I'm currently employed by the Michigan Department of State Police, assigned to the Grand Rapids Forensic Laboratory in the Forensic Biology and DNA Unit. I'm also a member of our Grand Rapids Laboratory Crime Scene Response Team.
And how long have you been in that position?
I have been in this role for over 20 years now.
So you were in that role in January 7th of 2007.
That is correct. I had just over 2 years at that point.
And are there specific areas of expertise in the crime laboratory?
There are a number of different disciplines in which we perform testing. I'm a member of a few of those disciplines at our local laboratory.
What ones are you a member of?
So most of my time is spent in the Forensic Biology and DNA Unit, more specifically as a DNA analyst. Although some small portion of my job duties is also occupied by my role in the Crime Scene Response Team from the Grand Rapids Laboratory, where we will respond to crime scenes and process for forensic evidence to bring back to the laboratory for testing.
And what type of training is required for this position?
For the role of forensic biology and DNA, we have an established training program. It's changed a little bit over the years, but by and large, it remains the same. My training for the biology portion of that is about 6 months to 9 months, and that's where I'm learning the policies, procedures in place to learn what types of testing are available. In forensic biology, we're trying to determine what type of biological material is present. Is it blood? Is it seminal fluid? Is it saliva? So there's a series of tests that we can do, and the training is specific to that. For my current role in the DNA unit, it's about 1.5 years up to 2 years of training in order to perform all of the different DNA functions. And then for crime scenes specifically, that's changed a little bit over the years, but my training involved an intensive 40-hour course of crime scene, learning a lot of different crime scene disciplines for collecting, and then a lot of on-the-job observation.
Alrighty, we're going to speed on through the curricula vitae,
So
unless you
how
all
many
are.
crime scenes
Let's
are really
say
interested
I
in
go to about 1
his,
month.
you know.
Typically, they're larger scenes, but about 1 a month over that 20-year period, whatever that math works out to. Some years obviously more, some years less. It kind of depends on the nature of.
Okay, I will say, so I know most of you know the story, but when I was pregnant with youngest, most feral, second to the last, I'm just going to say this in a future warning for any of you in chat that are thinking about procreating. If you are said procreating person, pregnant woman person, do not make your husband shave his head bald. You learn that your husband has like a golf ball divotty head. And poor Mr. Moe looked like he might have needed a make-a-wish. Now, I did apologize to that, and we had a sixth child, so it's not like I didn't find him attractive, but there are some pictures that Mr. Moe would like to burn from our history. So, just a future warning, you know, those of you who are pregnant or may become pregnant, if you are said pregnant person, do not do any radical things to your hair. Do not do anything radical to your significant other's hair. You are being hijacked by a sea and cocktail of hormones. You have no control. Do not trust yourself. Look, big decisions about your hair, just say no. I know you're going to want to. You're going to be like, I would love to have a perm. I really want curly hair. No, just say no. When you go to the salon and you're like, chop it all off, I feel fat. Think of Mama Mo. Think of this face and just say no. Just say no, children. Because that is really the bad thing. Because you're going to wake up the next morning and you're going to be like, why the hell did you let me cut my hair? I look like a boy who's having a baby. And I look all fat and disgusting and now I'm a man. So I'm just letting you know, husbands, remind your wife that she's pretty just as she is. Even if this is a lie, look, even if she looks like you are afraid and you want a pitchfork, you lie to that woman, you tell her she is looking beautiful, and you give her chocolate and back away slowly, okay? She cannot understand you. She is being taken over by hormones. The woman you loved is no longer there. You have a hormonal hysterical uterus who is growing a person. Look, I'm just telling you, beware, don't do it.
Of what's out and about there for us.
How many cases have you worked on where you were working with DNA and forensic biology?
Yeah, for forensic, first the screening portion, I would say less so today. Today I'm currently focused more on the DNA. As far as the screening, I might have done
Oh, good
different
Lord,
types
we're
of
not-
batches, each is hundreds to if not thousands of different forensic DNA analysis and crime scene processing.
And you said several state courts, or
I actually have testified in Michigan state courts, various counties across the state. Then I've also testified in federal court, both the Eastern and Western District of Michigan, and actually got to go to Indiana once and testified in Northern Indiana. So.
and as part of your preparation for this, did you provide me with your curriculum vitae?
Yes, I did.
And the curriculum vitae outlines your education, your training, and your occupation and positions. Is that a fair statement?
That is correct. It's all of the various forms of additional training that I've added on after that initial training period.
Your Honor, I would move to admit People's Exhibit Number 9 into evidence at this time.
We'll stipulate.
Court will receive Exhibit 9, CV.
Thank you, Your Honor. People would also move to admit Mr. Hayhurst as an expert in forensic biology and, DNA identification and forensic biology.
We'll stipulate that too.
Okay. Court will receive expert in forensic biology
We
and
could have
DNA
skipped all
analysis.
this with a DNAologist.
In
Oh,
2000,
excuse me. When I am president, we're going to skip all this crap. Look, this is going to be eliminated out. I don't want to hear it. I don't think the jury will want to hear it. In fact, we'll do a focus group of test juries. Would you like to hear about the curricula vitae, or would you like to skip it? So, I would be all for it. That being said, I'll just skip forward when we do Petty Express. Welcome, Christine Fortuno. I hope you are having a wonderful Tuesday.
January of 2007, were you called to assist the Van Buren County Sheriff's Department with an investigation involving a Ford Ecoline van?
Yes, we were, and I was.
And were you present when it was searched on January 9th of 2007?
Yes, I was.
Do you recall where that search was done?
The van was being secured upon our arrival at a location that was identified as Decatur Towing. It was in the city of town of Decatur, in the area of Decatur, Michigan, and it was secured upon our arrival.
And what is your original procedure then once you arrived?
Yeah, so specific for the crime scene processing, we were requested to analyze or to process the vehicle, process the van, and note any specific forensic value to it. Specifically, there was a focus on potential for biology or for blood stains that might be present, but our process is going to be the same. We arrive on scene, and our initial steps are going to be a series of documentation. So documenting the current condition of the vehicle, that would involve note-taking, how many miles are on the vehicle, is there any noted damage, any observational type things. It will involve a series of photographs of the vehicle. So again, what's the current condition of the vehicle upon our arrival? And then after that initial documentation is completed, we'll kind of jump into the more discipline-specific aspects. So again, at that point is where we started looking a little more specifically for what potential biological evidence might be present on that vehicle.
So you've already alluded to it, but based on these original observations, were there any areas that you determined that could possibly be blood or DNA?
Yeah, so initially upon our arrival, the vehicle's on the ground in the garage, and even immediately across the front surfaces of the vehicle, there were visible red-brown stainings that looked characteristic of blood staining. And so that was kind of the first initial observation before we did anything. At that point, we actually took advantage of the garage that it was stored in had a vehicle lift, so we could put the vehicle up on the lift and hoist it so that we could get on the underside of the vehicle, where we again were looking to observe additional red-brown stains that were present on the underside of the vehicle.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as People's Proposed Exhibit number 10, and there are 11 different photographs with little numbers at the bottom. If you could just flip through those and tell me if you recognize those photos, please.
Yes, People's Proposed Exhibit number 10 is a series of 10 photographs that appear to be photos that were taken during our processing of this vehicle. I can see some of the stickers that I applied during our processing and analysis. And these do appear to be fair and accurate photos of the vehicle upon the condition in which we were processing it.
Your Honor, our people would move to admit People's Exhibit number 10 at this time.
No objection.
Permission to publish? Thank you, Your Honor.
So we are getting into the van. This is I guess, crime lab scene response team person guy. Very technical. A crime scenologist, and he was deployed to go check out the van. Now his specialties seem to kind of.
I'm making a big popsicle.
And he's making a big popsicle. There are things happening in the Mo class. So, Tammy Fayette, the problem with trying to give you an order of events to all of her crimes is we are still at just kind of the pieces and parts. We have yet to understand that, Linda was having an affair. We have just now moved into where they're processing the van. So, I have no idea where either side wants to go with this case. I feel like the state is kind of meandering, not entirely their fault, because every single witness seems to get derailed by these pointless, irritating, ridiculous, pedantic, sidewind questions that the defense goes on. So while, in singularity, the state might have had a really good case that told a linear time story and, assumed that they were going to be farther by today. But honestly, every witness gets derailed with these ridiculous questions, and they're sidewindy, they're snarky, they're smarmy, they're gotcha questions, and it really is hard to see how this is going to play well for a jury that probably just wants to go home at the end of the day, would like to get their service done quickly, are away from their jobs, their families, and everything. And well, so what I saw, and, as Detective Mom, what I saw was a plastic bottle, full to the brim with deeply yellow liquid, which means that my son, my youngest, most feral, had decided to take an entire, like the 2-quart Crystalite packs. He decided to take an entire package and put it in one small, little 16-ounce water bottle, put a straw in that, and then has decided to put it in the freezer. And people wonder why we don't have anything to drink. At this point, it's like fighting a losing battle. I tell him no. He does things. He does things that I never thought to tell him no about. He does have a technicality because I never told him not to put an entire packet of Crystal Light into a small water bottle and put it in the freezer. So he, like the defense, has caught me in a technicality. That being said, I will go ahead and mark that down as something we don't do.
So I'm going to show you, and these pictures have a number in the lower right-hand corner. So this one has a number 1, so I'll make sure you're looking at the same. Can you tell the jury what we're looking at here in picture number -1?
Yes, in People's Exhibit number 10, image number 1 is an image, and the coloring's a little tough here. This is kind of the advent of digital photography for us during processing.
Okay, you know what she looks like? The chick from Dances with Wolves. It's the hair. She's got a little volume, a little vavoomp, teetering on, subtle 80s volume. But she looks like if, the lady from Dances with Wolves had a rough life after, marrying. Did she marry Kevin Costner? I only watched Dances with Wolves once, and it was against my will. Can I tell you that, look, so my mom was going out with friends, and we were going to the movies. And of course, this is an incredibly important story because it traumatized me. But we were supposed to go see Land Before Time. I mean, I was stoked. I was like 6 or 7. I remember just like Land Before Time. They had the big dinosaur posters. We get there and the dinosaur movie is completely sold out. So what does my mother and her friend decide to take me to see as a 6-year-old? Flippin' Flapjack Dances with Wolves. Now, I was never asked. I never asked to see Kevin Costner's butt, not once, but twice. Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, and Dances with Wolves. Now, I don't know who I need to talk to get a class action lawsuit started, but I think the kids of the 90s need, we need some emotional support, some damage compensation. We had to deal not only with Kevin Costner's ass, but, Rod freaking Stewart. So damn it, we need some money back. At least I do. I demand it. He did like to show his butt back then. I'm glad he doesn't show it now.
This is a view of the front surface of the vehicle itself. In the center of the image, there's a large white rectangle. That's a scale tag. It's a way for us to first of all put a scale in there. It's I believe a 1-inch scale, 2-inch segment here. Might be centimeters, excuse me. But it provides a scale that's present here. And then it also allows for the identification of this area. So handwritten in text on here is my handwritten text. I can see my initials are in the lower right of that. Excuse me.
I know,
So
but what
the
the
bottom
hell are
line
we
of that text
looking
is
at?
handwritten. Has our laboratory number. It has the date that we processed this vehicle. So January 9th of 07 has my initials. And then just above the laboratory number on the left-hand side is an indication of L-1. And that to me is an indication that this is the first area that we identified, again, on the front surface of that vehicle.
So you're starting at the front vehicle with your sample.
That is correct. That numbering system began at the front. It's actually, there's not a wider picture. It's a little bit more on the driver's side of the front of the van, and it's that lower front bumper. The bottom portion of it would almost be that kind of plastic fascia that hangs below the metal bumper itself. But it's a view of that front leading surface of the van on the front bumper.
And at this time, the van is on the lift?
It's tough to say at this point whether it's on the lift or on the ground. If it's got tags, I wouldn't be able to say. Basically, that's what I wouldn't be able to say. If it was yet on the ground and I'm stooped taking a picture, or whether it's up on the lift and I'm partially raised and I'm looking at it, I wouldn't be able to tell.
I'm going to advance then to the photograph of the number 2 at the bottom right corner. And can you tell the jury what we're looking at here?
Excuse me, yes, image number 2 within People's Exhibit number 10 is a similar view. Again, the same tag is visible. It's a little different lighting condition of the bumper itself, but the same information on the tag, lab number, date, my initials, and identifies it as area L1. And again, the
Okay, maybe down here is
tag is
blood.
above some of the visible staining that's present on the bumper itself.
And you said the staining then that you're looking at is below that tag?
Yeah, it's kind of a tough, again, the contrast in this photo, this is early digital photography for us. The red-brown staining is probably most prominently visible below the tag and slightly to the right. You can see there's a little bit of a red discoloration. Actually, it looks better on the monitor than the printout. Much better on the
pointing to
monitor,
the right
sorry.
location?
Yeah, that's correct. So there's some red-brown staining that's visible below the tag, slightly to the right. And in person, that staining actually is visible. It covers an area approximately 24 inches across the face of that bumper. It was heaviest in this area, but it does cover a little bit of a wider area across the front of the van. The front bumper of the van.
And I'm going to go then to photograph number 3.
Yeah, so photograph number 3, again, is a photograph of the underside of the vehicle at this point. So now the van is actually elevated, so it's easier for me to get underneath and see parts of it. What we actually see on the, again, you can see another one of my white tags. The color balance is a little tough on this one, dark underside, bright white tag. It's a tough camera shot. But what we actually see in the photo on the right-hand side of the photo is the front driver's side tire. You can see the rounded portion, and we catch just a little bit of it in the frame of the photo. The white sticker that I've placed is on, my car terminology is not real great, it's on the axle arm that will support that tire, and what we actually see is there's some red-brown staining on the leading edge of that arm that will support the tire itself. Again, driver's side, the front-facing portion is imaged here, and it has that red-brown staining that's present.
And I just want to be clear, the red-brown staining you are then discussing is then down and to the left of the sticker?
That is correct.
So
a lot of portions on the underside of this vehicle did show signs of rust, so it does kind of present a little bit of a challenge, but real specifically the area you just identified, where you can see it's a little darker in its appearance, that would be the red-brown staining that we're looking at, we're focusing on here.
And I should have asked you sooner when
Jesus. I mean, we've all been kind of distracted with the shenanigans that the defense has been doing and kind of the, dark absurdity of this whole case. But when you look down at the brass tacks, when we strip away the dark humor of it and, the kind of, way we deal with this man, bottom line, even if he was a butthole of mega proportions, even if he was a jerk husband, even if he, yelled at her, fussed at her, maybe even took it too far, no one deserves to die the way he did. Now, be it an accident or be it murder, this was a torturous death. And I don't know how the hell you run he would have been smoking, y'all. The problem is it was 32 degrees outside. He would have been literally smoking. Steam coming off of him in waves. You cannot not see that. I don't care how Twitter-pated you are. You cannot make me... you have to sell me that she was so incredibly Twitter-pated she didn't see a man that was probably still smoking. Giblets. Okay, all right. You got me. Sorry, y'all. I had to go tell youngest most feral that if he wanted to be loud, the rule is you have to go down, either downstairs or outside. If you'd like to be, enormously loud, that's where you go. And he was like, but I want to be up here and be loud. I'm like, that is not the rule.
When you have these white tags, does that signify then where you're taking samples from?
That is correct. So this tag actually would indicate that this is the area that we identified as LV2, and it's the second of the series of samples that we're going to collect from the underside of this vehicle.
And I'm going to advance now to photo number 4.
Yeah, photo number 4 is the next in the series of stains that we identified on the underside of this vehicle. Again, this is the leading face, or we're looking from front to back on the van, underside of the van. It's on the driver's side of the van, not the passenger side. And this is some kind of a protective box that's on the van, has been welded to protect some feature of the automotive component. But what we see is in the corner of this box, just below the white tag, is an area, again, of red-brown staining that was an area of focus. Again, that box had kind of a sharp, pointy corner to it, and that would be an area that appears to have captured some red-brown staining. This tag in this instance identifies this area as LV3.
Welcome, DK Cripple.
And that would mean then the third sample you took.
That is correct.
And when you said the little point below the sticker, I just want to make sure we're all looking at the same thing. Is my pointer on the correct photo or correct point there?
Yes, that's correct. Again, that corner both stained up, over, and back a little bit, but right on that leading edge corner of that protective box.
And I'm going to go to photo number 5, and could you explain to the jury what this is?
Photo number 5 is again another image of that same area. It's that same protective box. We have a slightly different lighting quality to this photo, so perhaps it's a little easier to visualize. Again, this represents area LV3, again, the third stain that we've identified. And again, you can see that discolor.
This is actually not a smart-ass question, and maybe it's all his training, because I definitely wouldn't be able to tell this as being blood versus rust. And so, I mean, all the training he does, all of the, classes and seminars, and because honestly, I would have figured that for rust. So there you go.
Coloration right on that corner of that protective box itself. Plenty of other rusty areas underneath the van, but we see there's a little bit of a change in the kind of the color, the intensity of that red that really piqued our interest. Instead of being rust elsewhere, this is the area of actual staining that we're focused on.
I'm going to advance then to photo number 6, and what are we looking at here?
Yeah, so photo number 6 is actually not too far. It's kind of adjacent to that box that we saw in the last photo. Photo number 6 is actually an image of the driver's side running board. The van had sidestep running boards, and this is actually an image from the underside looking towards the outside. So we're actually seeing the part that you wouldn't see if you're standing outside the van. You'd only see if you're standing below the van. And again, we see that there's this area of red-brown discoloration. This had more like a silvery, almost like an aluminum type of an appearance. And so the red-brown staining is a little more visible in this. This is what we identified as area LV4. It would be the 4th area where we saw red-brown staining underneath the vehicle.
And you said this was also on the driver's side?
That is correct.
I'm going to advance now to photo number 7 in the bottom right corner. Can you explain what this is?
Yeah, again, this is very similar to the last view. Again, just a little bit of a tweak in the lighting or the imaging. You can see a slightly different appearance. Same LV4, same red-brown stain.
I think the state is very smart. They really refrained, as far as I could see, and in the testimony of the medical examiner, the forensic pathologist, they really didn't show any pictures of Todd. Not that I can remember. I'll have to go back and rewatch the testimony from the state, but I don't recall them bringing up any pictures. Now, the defense did, and I think that might have been a mistake. But I think the state has done a really good thing strategically here, because, in horror movies, the less they show the monster, the more scary it is. Our minds are imagining a much worse fate for Todd right now than, it would be had we seen the autopsy pictures. I think this engenders more horror and more emotion in the, jury than it would have been had they shown all of the autopsy photos. I think this was a very smart way to, try to be respectful of the jury and keep them from a lot of the gory stuff, but still give an impact of what this man went through. So I commend them. I think this is a good thing. I think if we're reacting viscerally to this, I think the jury is going to be too, because they're going to be realizing that this man was on fire, suffering from that, barely able to breathe, and then he got run over. And this is going to be, I think, more impactful than if you had shown all of the autopsy photos.
Along the running board side of the vehicle. But again, we see this appearance of that staining that is present.
I'm going to advance now to photo number 8. Could you explain what this is?
Yeah, so photo number 8 is a little bit further back. Again, we're on the underside of the vehicle. We're on the driver's side still. This is again, here's my terminology is not great, the rear axle of the vehicle. This is we see that there's a cylinder shape that runs across the photo left to right. That's the portion of the back axle that is going to then support that rear tire. We see that there are several U-bolts that are kind of holding that vehicle to that axle. And as you look on the U-bolt itself and then on the axle that's next to it, we see that there is red-brown staining. In this image, it would be to the right. Again, my number tag is here, present, LV5 in this instance. The staining is to the right of the tag and slightly below. And we see where it is on both the axle itself, so the wide cylinder portion that's going to support that, and then on the bolt that actually secures that axle to the underside of the vehicle. It was kind of a continuation of that red-brown staining on both of those surfaces.
So when you talk about the bolt, where is the bolt at?
Again, my terminology is not great. Those would be in the shape of a giant, each of those would be in the shape of a giant U that
This one?
would support the axis. That's correct. So either
Okay,
side of
so
my
is
white
it-
tag is a big, like a U-shaped piece of metal that will then bolt
Is it
that axle
this?
to the frame of the vehicle itself.
And you saw then some staining then on both sides of that.
Primarily on the right bolt, so primarily on the right side of the white number tag. But again, we see that it's on both that metal bolt and then on the axle itself, kind of a continuation across both of those surfaces.
Holy God.
And I'm going to advance.
Sir, it's called lighting. Get a light, get a bright light, get an assistant, get an intern, get some crazy chick who likes true crime to hold you a flashlight behind you.
Now to number 9, and what are we looking at here?
Holy shit,
Again, this would be that
lighting.
same area, stain we've identified as LV5. Again, slightly different lighting conditions here. But again, we see where there is
You mean good lighting? Like, you're gonna give me a migraine, sir.
red-brown staining. You know, the whole underside itself kind of has that rusty, kind of dirty appearance to it. But we see an area that's slightly more red-brown in appearance.
Okay, Tanya, if you like that, look, I'm not telling you to do this because you'll become addicted to British snack cakes, but there are Battenberg cakes and then Bakewell tarts that are flippin' flapjack awesome, and they do have almond sort of flavoring. Now, don't tell me I didn't warn you, because you will become addicted, and then Amazon will have to wait until the English let us come and get their snack cakes.
And that's more consistent with the red-brown staining of blood staining. And so that's
think
the area
it's
we
on a
focus
Sunday
when we
every
reflect-
year.
reflect
I could be
from,
wrong.
This surface.
And
I'm a bad
advancing
Christian.
to the last photo, I believe, photo 10.
Jesus
Image number 10
Christ.
from People's Exhibit number 10 is a image of the spare tire on this van. So on this vehicle, the spare tire is actually located on the exterior of the vehicle. On the underside, it's kind of suspended from the bottom of the back of the vehicle. And what we observed is you can kind of see the tread of the tire is pretty apparent through the center of this photo. I have a tag on here that's identified this as stain LV6. And it's actually this grouping or collection of stains that you can see on the tread of the tire. Again, the bottom surface of the tire is visible in the bottom portion of the vehicle, so imagine that hanging off the bottom side, and then you have tread that carries up vertically up into some of the protected recesses underneath that vehicle. And we actually see is there's red-brown staining towards the top of that tire tread, so nearest to the underside of the vehicle, further away from the ground itself, we see that staining continues up that vertical surface.
JKD book, it's all Greek to me, and I don't know any Greek. Except I really like baklava. So I'm going to tell you guys, my entire family loves gyros. Now, I call it horse meat. It smells weird to me. I'm not going to lie. I don't like it. But when we go to... Excuse the background noise. I have warned you guys with the banner, but feral shenanigans are happening everywhere. And so here's my thing. I love baklava. I'm not a fan of the gyro. But I do like the pita bread. Now, I'm pretty sure it's just because it's a carb, but I do like that. And I don't know what the Greek, restaurant at King Gyros puts in their French fries, but if you're sitting there, they're addictive. They're worse than McDonald's. I don't know. I just eat a whole butt ton of them. That being said, ooh. Oh my goodness. Okay, I've never made one, but I do want to. All right, so I'm going to the genuine knowledge of chat. I'll tell you what I'm looking for, and then maybe you guys can direct to me. Now, what I need is something in my kitchen for days that I can't stand. I need like a chair with wheels, but something that's mobile, that's not going to get in the way, and, can go up and down. It maybe has a backrest. I'm looking at those stools that they use in doctor's offices. The problem is that if I get one of those fun stools, and if you have kids, as soon as you get into the doctor's office, they are laying down on that rolly seat and trying to do a Superman and, get themselves to need stitches in the effing, doctor's office. But that's what I'm thinking I'm going to get. But if anyone has something that they use in the kitchen on days that they can't stand very well, I would appreciate any recommendations because I am trying to be more functional and get back into the kitchen. There have just been days where I just can't stand. And so we have gotten used to, a lot of, hamburger helper and things like that that are easier to make, but I would love to get back to cooking real meals.
And that portion that was collected from this LV6 is a portion of the red-brown staining that was visible on that tire itself.
And are we still then looking at just the driver's side?
Yeah, again, the tire is, because it's larger, it has a little bit more central location, but this surface that it's on, this portion of the tire, is more to the driver's side than it is to the passenger side. Again, consistent with the staining that we've seen from the front of the vehicle as it continues through the bottom side of the vehicle, along the driver's half of the vehicle, and then this would be the end of that visible staining that's present.
So tell me if my question is confusing. If I were standing in the back of the van and looking towards the front of the van, were there any stains going that direction?
So it may be possible to visualize a small portion of these stains if you are standing in the back of the van and looking forward, but just the portions that kind of continue from the front-facing surfaces downward. By and large, most of the stains that were visual.
Now, to be incredibly fair, there is nothing that Linda can do to look good in this trial. And what I mean by that is that whatever she does, she is going to be judged harshly. Now, I know I make fun of her hair, but this is more along the lines of if she cries, if she doesn't cry, if she looks stoic, if she's writing notes, if she's not writing notes, if she's conversing with her lawyers. So these are things that she's going to be judged on, and, it is going to be split right down the middle, whether she cried appropriately, whether those were crocodile tears, whether, she was giggling too much with her lawyers. Now, in my defense, I think Stacy was disgusting. Stacy Rodriguez in that particular trial, Colorado versus Stacy Rodriguez, she was absolutely disgusting, kikiing and laughing and just being an absolute obnoxious cahoon during that trial. I may get that. Now, I will say I have tried a saddle stool and it really hurts my legs, so I'll probably just get a regular stool. Or one with a little cuppy, so your butt has, butt contour. I don't know. Ugh.
Visualized were much more visible on the front-facing vertical surfaces of the van. Again, surfaces that I would expect to see if you were standing in the front looking back at different surfaces on the underside as compared to the reverse of standing behind and seeing them forward. Everything appeared to be on the front-facing surfaces, not on the rear-facing surfaces.
Okay, so what he's basically confirming is that she took him head on. So basically all the stains are showing him that all of the surfaces hit as if you had, well, basically plowed through that. I won't judge truckology, by one truckist. And she's been excommunicated. She's untrucked.
It's been marked as People's Proposed Exhibit number 11, and it sounds like we have a stipulation from defense to the admission at this time.
Okay, thank you. We'll receive People's 11.
Yes, Your Honor. And I'm going to put it up on the screen for everyone to see. And is this your report?
That is correct. This is the laboratory report that our team generated in response to our crime scene response. It's a 3-page report, and it is a fair and accurate copy of our report.
And could you just give kind of a general overview of what we're looking at in this report?
Yeah, so all of our reports begin with this kind of top header type information, has our laboratory information at the very top, has some case specific information. It will bear in the upper left hand corner, it has our laboratory number, so all of our laboratory work under this incident will have the same laboratory number. And it has the submitting agency and their complaint number, so Van Buren County Sheriff's Department, and what complaint number they're carrying this under. And then beyond that, we detail some of the real basic portions of the report, our kind of background in our crime scene response specific to this activity. So it begins with a basic information that is basically a retelling of how did we receive the request to come and respond. So it was actually received on the 8th of January, and we responded on the 9th of January. The response itself is detailed here, so this will list our personnel that were involved in going to the scene, where we actually arrived at and when we responded. And then the next section begins at the bottom of the first page, and we'll carry on beyond that, is some of the details of the vehicle itself. So again, this is some of that initial documentation type information that we've collected specific to the van. It's a 1993 Ford Econoline Mark III van, has this license plate, this VIN number, some basic descriptions of the van itself, and then we go into some of the actual observations that were made specific to the red brown staining that is present here.
So if I go to page 2, we see that?
That continues on to the top of page 2, again, kind of detailing some of these areas of red brown stain that we've already characterized from the photos, kind of describes them in a little bit more detail. In the middle of page 2 is a chart, and we always include this chart for any evidence that we've collected from any crime scene response we go to. So specific to this case, this chart lists the 6 items, LV1 through LV6, that were collected from this vehicle. It gives a brief description of where they were discovered from. In this case, they're all red brown stains from the bottom side of this vehicle, front or the bottom side of this vehicle. Has what date, time it was collected, who it was collected by, and who took it back to the laboratory to submit it for analysis. And in this instance, all of those were collected by myself and then taken back to the lab for further processing by myself. There's a couple of more specific notes about the documentation itself, just saying that I myself took some measurements of some of the different portions of the stains and the locations. One of my coworkers, another one of our responding members, took some photographs, so he would have taken the photographs that we've seen today. And then finally, a third member did some real basic sketches.
Yeah, so I probably get not the saddle style. I have tried the saddle style before, and it was not my jam. Now, the state didn't take 18 years to retry her, so it kind of breaks down like this, DK Cripple. The incident or crime happened in 2007, January. She was convicted in 2010. Now, in 2018, her conviction was overturned for. I'm going to dig in deeper and do a longer video, kind of going through the decision and why she got a new trial, because from what I've seen broken down, it was ineffective counsel and I believe the lack of challenging any experts. So that's why she got a new case. So she has been out, I think, on her own recognizance with an ankle bracelet since 2018. Due to COVID and all that other stuff, I'm sure this is as fast as they could get her back into trial. Or given the, swiftness with which the lawyer speaks, this is when they finally got to trial. I'm not ruling either out, the coof or the lawyer. Oh, and it looks like breaking news from Court TV. Two jurors have been seated in her trial. That's the goal. What we're struggling with right now is thinking about moving to a climate that is better on CRPS. So how much do we want to dump in this house versus do we want to maybe focus on more cosmetic and sellability, if that's a word, kind of features. So that's where we're kind of at with that. I mean, that's more than I thought they would get. Now I'm waiting for the Lori Vallow stuff, because I will try to do a recap of those by speed watching, but it's gonna be tight. Look, I got a lot done today, but we'll see if that holds up.
Of the underside of the vehicle. And then the final page has the 3 signatures of there were 4 of us on the team that day. One was an analyst in training. So the 3 responsible parties who were there to make observations on that day are listed here: Kevin Streeter, Troy Prince, and myself, David Hayers.
And I'm going to show you now what's been marked with people's proposed exhibit number 12.
No worries. I did do DK Cripple. If you haven't been able to keep up on all the streams, I am trying to, again, copy Baker as per usual, but do a breakdown. I did a breakdown of day 1 and day 2 to kind of get you orientated. It's my first one. Hopefully I will stay, on topic with these, and it shouldn't be as long when I get to just a single day. Hopefully we'll get done with today, in theory. and then I can break that down in the morning and give you kind of a breakdown for those of you. And for those of you who are watching in the chat and lurking, thank you for watching. Your support is greatly appreciated, because if I had to watch this by myself, I think I'd be bald because I'd pull my hair out. I'd look exactly like discount, odd job. That being said, let's get on with that. And I am on Rumble now. I am endeavoring to put everything on Rumble so that I have a backup for YouTube. And I am going to actually open the box on my extended hard drive. That's what she said. And start downloading all the things, I hope. In theory. We'll see. I mean, this is a big step for me, opening a techno box and, trying to figure it all out. It never ends well. Good Lord, he reads slow too. How do you read that slow? Damn. Oh no, I won't be doing a video of that. That's...
I'm going to show you what's been marked as people's proposed exhibit number 12 and number 13, if you could look at those.
People's proposed exhibits number 12 and 13, excuse me, are two additional laboratory reports that I generated.
She
based on
does.
laboratory testing or processing that was done.
Without the
in our
wonky
laboratory
eye.
Specific to this case.
So those are your reports, no changes or
I
alterations?
know I'm not
That is
supposed to say
correct. They are
nothing,
fair
but
and
the
Your Honor,
wonky
I
eye
move to
gets
admit
me.
people's exhibit 12 and 13 into evidence.
Any objection? Okay, court will receive people's 12 and 13.
Permission to
and
publish. So I'm going to show you what's been marked as people's proposed exhibit number 12. If you could just tell the jury what we're looking at here.
So again, this is a laboratory report that I generated specific to the same incident, same laboratory number. In this report, I am doing that initial biology testing in the laboratory, or biology processing, for those 6 samples that I collected from the vehicle itself. So you'll see that each of the 6 items is listed here as being an item of evidence that was received. Some of the items actually had some testing that I did in the laboratory. Items 1, 3, 5, and 6 are items that I did a little further testing in the laboratory. Items 2 and 4, I did not do any further testing at this time. They didn't end up being forwarded to DNA analysis because I selected other items instead. But it lists each of those items, LV1 through LV6. Specific to LV1, 3, 5, and 6, I performed the same test in the laboratory on each of these items, and in each of these instances, I got the same result. An immunological test that I have available to me, it's a specific test for a protein that is present in human blood. It's a test that I conducted, and in each of these 4 items, it was positive. It indicated
Yes,
the
I believe
presence
it's
of
the
human blood
hematocrit.
on item LV1, LV3, LV5, and LV6. So those 4 items, I cut a portion of the swab that I collected, and I prepared it in a DNA extraction tube so that it would be ready to go for the next step of DNA analysis testing. So that's the report. Basically, again, lists those 6 items, list that test results, and then list that I selected these 4 items to send forward for DNA analysis.
So the specific test result that you did is to determine that is human blood.
That's correct. On scene, I did a little early test to see if it was possibly blood or not on one of the samples, one of the 6 samples. Here, I wanted to follow up with a little stronger test. It's much more specific to human blood and not other types of blood or other other things that can give us
Yeah,
different
it's
results.
not
So I
a
wanted a little more
possum.
specific test. And in each of these 4 instances,
Or a
it did
trash
indicate that it's
panda.
human blood.
So at this point, there's no DNA testing. It's just the presence of the human blood.
That's correct.
And then you said that you prepared it then for further testing?
That's correct. In each one of those samples, I collected it, originally on scene, I collected the swab onto 2 cotton tip swabs. We wet them, I'll swab the blood, and it carries over to the swabs. In the laboratory here, I would have cut the cotton portion off of one of those swabs and placed it into a DNA extraction tube, and that's helpful for the DNA analyst because then everything's ready to go. They can just add their chemicals and go through their process. So I did that initial testing to see that it was human blood, and then prepared it for that DNA analysis process.
And now I'm going to show you then people's exhibit 13. And what are we looking at here?
People's exhibit number 13 is another report that I generated on this same case. It actually, the work was done on the same day. It was just done later in the day. For people's exhibit number 13, this is where I processed a DNA card was submitted from Todd Stermer. A DNA card is a card that's collected at autopsy. They will take blood at autopsy and they will spot it out onto a card so that blood is dried. And then I'll take a cutting or a portion of that and place it into a tube so that it's ready to go for DNA analysis. This is what's used as a known sample for this case. So the previous report I sent 4 evidence samples forward, and now I have 1 known sample that will be used as a known profile from this individual and will be used to compare against the evidence samples that were submitted.
And so then you prepared those samples then
I
for
know.
that with the known sample.
No red Solo cups, no Walmart bags, no, Trader Joe totes. I mean, is this a real crime scene analysis? I feel like there should be more shenanigans, leaf blowers. They have mentioned snow, Rachel D. In fact, a lot of day 1 and day 2 was mentioning that it was spitting snow, rainy, and sleet snow yucky mix. So we have had both climate talk and random ridiculous questions. They go to full scale, class delta redonkulous. Without
and
the
then unknown samples from the
badonkulous.
van, and then those particular
Not
samples
good.
go then for DNA analysis.
That's correct. They were prepared separately, so 4 evidence samples and then the 1 known. But all of those samples were then forwarded for DNA analysis. Each one's in its own separate tube, each one's sealed separately, and they're ready to be tested by our DNA analyst in this case.
And do you know who the DNA analyst that you forward these to?
No Solo cup. This is corrupt. How do you crime scene when you're in Canton? It's with the red Solo cup. That blood you fill it all up and put it in the Trader Joe's tote bag. Now that is evidence.
Was?
Yes, in this case, the analyst is Ann Hunt, who was a coworker of mine for many years, and she's the one who conducted the testing on this case. Pretty sure I was pretty close to being done with my DNA training at this point, but might not have been quite signed off yet. So these were handed over to an additional analyst for testing.
Another
I have no further
analyst who
questions for this
said,
witness, Your Honor.
"Oh God, please! It's a crap roulette. Do I want to be annoyed or do I want to be bored?"
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Okay, annoyed it is.
Make sure I understand some of what you did. Some of the photographs you showed a tire and some blood stains on the tire.
That's correct.
Red-brown stains on the tire, right?
That's correct, yes.
I just want to make sure we're
Yeah,
clear.
really.
Those were on the spare tire underneath the van.
That is correct. The images that we're showing here today with the red brown staining on the tire, that is the spare tire, again, located on the
Okay,
undersurface
will
of the vehicle,
do.
kind of suspended from the bottom side of the vehicle, and they were on that vertical edge, the tread portion of that tire.
There was nothing from the tread portion of the 4 tires, driver front, passenger front, driver rear, passenger rear, on the tread surface themselves, correct?
There was brown staining on the treads of all 4 tires, but it was brown like a mud brown. It was not a brown that would make me have cause to think that it could be red brown, that would be more consistent with blood staining. It was much more.
Okay, defense. Now, I was under the impression you are there to make your client look good. Let's really bring up that she runned him over and got so much blood on the spare tire that I could actually see it with the crap lighting that he had. No, remind the jurors that this man was flaming and run over. This is a great strategy. I commend it. I really, it is bold.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
Godspeed, brave morons.
More like a muddy
Right.
appearance.
Which, of course, you saw mud on the frame and mud on the tires, right?
That's right.
Right.
Sir, it tested positive serologically for blood. He didn't mistake it for mud, and I don't know what you're trying to tell the jury, but that looked like gosh darn blood to me, and it tested positive serologically, so I don't know how you're going to confound us, but it better be a muggle, it better be a good confundus charm. You're making me forget my Harry Potter lore. Damn you.
I noticed that, I want to make sure we are clear about this too. Your report indicates on page 2
Of the scene report.
of the scene report, right?
Yes.
Are you with me? Do you
I
have
don't
it?
have it in front of me, but it's the 3-page, People's 11.
Have you reviewed it? Your
I
report
have
before you
reviewed
came?
it.
All right, I just want to make sure I'm clear. No red-brown stains were noticed on any rearward-facing edges of any objects on the undercarriage.
That's correct. Again, the staining that was visualized was more on the front-facing surfaces of the underside, not the rear-facing surfaces.
Which would suggest that when
Okay, so not that you should ever be making this sort of argument as a defense attorney, but basically what he is saying is that this is Todd, or however Todd was positioned, and let's say this, empty energy drink is the van. Well, basically, everything, single surface that was marked is more front facing. So maybe she didn't roll over back on him like a daggone speed bump. So it seems like she only runned over him once. Now, YouTube, this was for educational purposes. Do not ding me. I never put on that I'm for children. I put on that I'm on the Petty Express. People know what they're getting. They saw the ride, still bought a ticket. Stop being, a butthole. Okay?
And the source of the red-brown stains was struck, the van was going forward.
That would be the suggestion. Again, that would be one possible explanation, is as something is traveling under the van and depositing those stains, it would be traveling and hitting the front-facing surfaces, not the rear-facing surfaces. Again, I wouldn't go much beyond that, but it would be consistent with that appearance.
It's certainly most likely would be consistent with that.
That's correct, yes.
There's nothing that suggested to you that the van was put in reverse and backed up over the source of those red-brown stains, fair?
That's correct.
Your fellow lawyer put that in the juror's mind. In his opening statement, he said, some magical way through muscle involuntary movements, Todd Dunn apparated right in front of the van, and she had to go, forward and back over him. Your lawyer is the one who put the backward motion into the jury's head.
I have no indication of that.
Now, I notice on
You are
page
welcome.
2
I'm not sure
that you
how I
used the
said
tape
that
measure.
the wrong way,
That's correct.
but I can't get it
None of your
unset.
photographs show anything in terms of dimensions of how far inboard these stains were,
That is correct.
or, frankly, how high the stain was on that lower fascia, right?
So there is some notation in my notes that are not represented in the report, and that would be where I was using the tape measure to, again, measure size of those stains and distribution. I do have notation of that front-leading blood staining, if you'd like those measurements.
I just want to make sure we're clear. All the measurements were from the front fascia and below.
So the measurements that I have for that LV1, which is that front-facing stain, showed that the staining was approximately 24 inches wide at its widest, and would go
Okay.
from the lower.
JKD Buck, if we put her hair on his head, he'd be. Do you remember when Fedorowski had that Asian gentleman in the blonde bouffant hairdo? That's exactly who he would look like, at least in my opinion. Yeah, it seems like she was in a perfect position to see him. Now, I could see, but I would have a really hard time understanding if she backed into him. Actually, I wouldn't have a hard time. Say she was trying to get out of, the rut there, and she tried to roll forward to get the momentum to get out because she was talking about something about the van not being great at getting out of this makeshift area. I could get if she tried to go up, the car, did the not gonna happen thing and it went back down and she hit him that way. That I could possibly reason out. I could possibly say with all reasonableness, this could happen. Now that still leaves her open for, manslaughter because she didn't mean for this to happen, but someone still died. But this, yeah, he does.
Portion of that fascia, so the fascia would be up off the ground a bit and continued approximately, I believe it's 5 inches upward from there. So
From the
however high
underside.
that is off the ground, that's.
Okay, I don't know what's going on with the court feed. This is... Okay, I have no idea what has happened here. Okay, no, we already went through him. Why did this jump back to... All right, well, I have just gotten... What the hell happened? This is when I got mad at him for reading slowly.
And what are we looking at here?
People's Exhibit number 13.
There's nothing that suggested to you that the van was put in reverse and backed up over the source of those red-brown stains, fair?
That's correct. I have no indications of that.
Now, I notice on page 2 that you used the tape measure.
Okay, when that is your win, that is not, a gotcha. That's not, well, she is innocent. That's a manslaughter or a reckless homicide. Congratulations. However, if they get her to reckless homicide, if it's a lesser and included, if they get her down from 1, I mean, I think that that would be the not at all likely, but the Hail Mary, like full of grace, the best outcome for the defense in this, I think, would be a reckless homicide versus, a conspiracy to commit murder, the premeditated, all of that.
I believe it's 5 inches upward from there. So
Talking about the measurements. that
He took
was-
measurements and found the blood, or what he thinks is blood.
Maybe establish if this is even in his area of expertise.
Oh, I'm just gonna get right to there right now. You are a chemist, am I right?
I would characterize myself more as a biologist, but yes, I have some chemistry
I want to
experience.
insult you, sir. All right. As a biologist, you are certainly not an accident reconstructionist, right?
That is correct.
You have no specialty in biomechanics.
That is correct.
You have no specialty in injury causation.
I've had some training, but I would not characterize myself.
Do I hear a call? A beacon? For Canon Daddy to make an appearance. Now, I ask for humanity and for the sanctity of this case, but could we have Canon Daddy come in and do some scienceology? For science. It's for science, and we all need to learn, even us adults. So I say Canon Daddy and all of the ARCA guys must be brought in for science and Jesus and such. And the plot. Yeah, the plot.
As a specialist.
And you certainly wouldn't offer an opinion as to injury causation in this case, fair?
That's correct, yes.
All
That's
right.
Yes, ma'am.
You are apparently not an expert in any type of body kinematics?
That's correct.
In
I
terms
think
of
there
any
are. The
injury causation
handicapable
forces
are
that
exempt, I
on
guess.
impact, you would defer to somebody who was a biomechanics expert or an accident reconstruction person for those, right?
That is correct, yes.
Are you aware, sir, that the medical examiner in this case said the van impact had nothing to do with Todd Stermer's death?
I was,
I mean,
It's not in evidence, is it?
It is. Dr. Mark, you just
He
testified.
only testified what could be consistent. He didn't say, and then he said his cause of death was from the inhalation of the fire, but the injuries were then consistent with being hit by a van. So I think we're
The
miscatching.
question, Your Honor,
Rephrase the question.
was you are not aware that the medical examiner said that the impact with the van had nothing to do with the injuries that caused Mr. Stermer's death.
Again, Your Honor.
I'm going to sustain that objection. I think it's a bit confusing.
Yeah, lawyer Annie Hall, listen to her. Also, stop being... I could not be married to this man. Look, y'all, I don't look good in orange. This man would have me catching a case. I would need bail money. Now, speaking of bail money, you guys, look, I'm not one to grift, but I do have an opportunity to get the, Sarah Boone family stuff. So each and every super chat goes to that. I rarely grift, but if you would like to help support the, bring back of our favorite golden girl, you can of course super chat, like this stream, comment on it. Everything helps with engagement. There, I've done grifting. I don't know how I'm doing it. I'm going to talk to Baker. I think he has a pamphlet, so that'll be great. Yes, the Sarah Boone family stuff. So I have had Jedi Jess look into it, and there is a fee to get all of her family stuff. So if you'd like to contribute, you can. If not, I will still go ahead and buy it, and we will get our favorite golden girl back, because once this case ends, I will be heading over to Baker's to help him with the Karen Reed case, and then I will be dual following the Lori Vallow case. So in the evenings, we will be way behind. I will already give you guys that. But on the evenings that I can, I will be doing the Lori Vallow case in parts, so the Petty Express will still ride, but I will be helping Baker out with that, I am the resident Karen Reed dummy, so I will be the one that has no idea who the McNairs are and who the Houthis are. So there you go. I know, no Dr. Pepper for Sarah. So there you go. I have grifted. It feels weird. That being said, I am also going to start a actual grift stream, because I am negotiating to go to Dollywood, and anything would be appreciated, because, oh my gosh, I'm getting away. Look, don't take this the wrong way. I love my kiddos. I love my kiddos. I love my husband. I love every single thing about them except how loud they are. And they are loud. And I have not slept since since I had my first daughter. So, you know, doing something for Mo might be an interesting change of plans. Just a thought. But that being said, the grifting will continue until grifting will continue until I get better at this. So those are my first 2 attempts. I'm going to tell Baker I want a gold star now. I'll be like, I grifted. I'm so proud of me. The things that tickle me and the things that I do to avoid this lawyer talking. Giblets.
You don't know the cause of this fire, do you?
I do not have any information related.
How the ever-living flapjack giblets in the hell would this man know about the fire? He was there testing the van that done run the man over. He's not a fireologist. I'm gonna hang out with everyone. I am going to get my new walker because my child decided to take one of the very important stability bolts out of my current walker, and he doesn't know where it is, which is a great thing because I don't really need it at all for stability.
Information on where the fire started, am I right?
I do not have any information related to that.
Nothing more at this time. Thank you.
I have no further questions for this witness, Your Honor.
Jury, do you have questions of him? I definitely have hands going up.
Okay, she's a smoke show. And she looks natural. Looks like she doesn't have any makeup on. Now, men, I will tell you that can be a trick. Okay, there are some women that put on so much makeup to look natural. It's insane. Now, I'm not saying they don't look great. I'm just saying that they put on about 27 tons of primer, serum, spackle, I don't know, drywall cement. I don't know. Ooh, good idea. So I'm saying she does look natural, but as I fail girl most of the time, she might have a ton of makeup on too. That being said, I want to grow my hair that long. Grow, damn you, grow.
Areas that peaked our did some.
Anything inside the driver's, questions from the jury, no objection from counsel. Did you test anything inside the driver's area for fluid or blood?
No, we did some basic observation on the interior of the vehicle, but there were no stains of interest, no areas that piqued our interest, so no additional testing was conducted inside the vehicle itself.
Is it ever positive, is it ever possible, I'm getting better at this juror's handwriting, but is it ever possible where false positives occur in testing?
Yeah, certainly when we talk about the biological screening testing that is available to me, we have a number of different tests that are available. Some of them are potentially have more false positives than others. That's part of our training, is to learn to identify some of those scenarios. For example, the underside of a vehicle frequently has a lot of rust, and rust is known to cause issues with some of the testing that we do. So specific to this vehicle, I chose not to do that test on the rusty areas because of that. When we come in terms of the laboratory.
And the test that he would be talking about is, I think, it's something blue. Basically, it tests for the iron that's present in human blood. However, with the rust, that is iron. So he is showing a level of, capability, ease in his field, because he, instinctively or with careful forethought, picked a test that wasn't going to rely on iron. So this is actually good for the state because he's showing kind of his, vast knowledge, his, just his ability to choose what it is that he needs. He's not a Trooper Paul. He's using discernment and his brain. He has a prefrontal cortex, so I think that's where we're missing it. I do wonder if they've done genetic studies in Canton to see the level of Neanderthal blood, Neanderthal kind of genetics in all of the troopers, just asking for a friend, not putting them down, but I think we might have seen, you know, a lower level of evolution.
Test, or the test that I did in the laboratory, the immunological test, really the only known false positives there are known to be blood from, it'll react positive with blood from humans, it'll react positive with blood from upper primates, so orangutans, gorillas that might be running loose, and then finally ferret blood. For whatever reason, that protein that's present in ferret blood can also give a false positive. That's why we kind of take those tests with a grain of salt and understand that the DNA analysis portion is really ultimately the best test that I have, and that will be truly a good gauge as to whether that's a human blood stain or not if we get a good DNA profile from.
Oh my God, you know what I need? That clip that says, it's not a ferret, or it's a ferret, or whatever he says. I don't know Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's like, it's not a fairy, it's a ferret. Look, I know I have an addiction, and knowing is the first step, and I'm comfortable being on the first step right now.
From that sample.
Thank you. And I think you answered this pretty much. Was the inside of the van checked for any blood or fluid?
Yeah, again, we did a very precursory look. We did examine the interior of the van. There were no stains of interest that required us to look a whole lot further, so no additional testing on the inside of the van.
Thank you. Council, any questions in light of the questions and answers? Other than
Say
where
no.
might be the orangutans that are on the loose?
So when you say you checked and there were no stains or areas of interest in the inside, did you also look at the steering wheel?
Yeah, and we looked at kind of the standard components of steering wheel, seats, flooring, all of the kind of immediate areas you would be in, definitely in the vicinity of whoever may have been driving that vehicle, but also through the middle and the rear portions of the vehicle, there was other kind of normal standard stuff that you have in your car. We observed kind of that stuff to make sure there was nothing that was any large glaring stains that were present. And again, no observations were made within of any red ground stain within the interior of the vehicle.
And how about door handles, both interior and exterior?
Door handles we would have examined too as part of that process and did no sort of stain was present.
I have no further questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
Mueller?
You are trained to have a keen eye looking for these
Oh, dear
red-brown
God.
stains that might be blood.
That is correct.
All right. So in your examination of the driver's side interior of the van, you didn't just stick your head in, I don't see anything, and leave.
That's
right?
correct. That's correct.
I don't mean to be facetious, but you're a scientist.
That's correct.
All right. So you didn't find anything on the driver's side inside, am I right?
That is correct.
You didn't find anything that piqued your interest on the passenger side
On the interior of the vehicle,
inside.
no, that's correct.
You didn't find anything in the rear on all that stuff
That's
that
correct.
piqued your interest, and had anything piqued your interest, you would have taken a sample.
I would have at least followed up with some kind of testing at the scene and potentially collect a sample, and I did not in this case.
Thank you.
Ms. Ivey?
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Jury, do you have any other questions? No questions? May he be excused from subpoena, counsel?
I would ask that you please be excused, Your Honor.
Agreed, Mr. Mueller? Okay. Thank you, sir. You're all
Thank
done.
Ooh, he's good.
Sir, do you mind handing me those exhibits? Thank you.
Okay, here's the other thing. I just thought of it. He looks like Lurch if Lurch was a short guy. I'm terrible. I'm going straight to hell. Anyone want to join me?
Okay, we'll take our afternoon break at this time, jury. About 15 minutes again. Remember the rules.
This, I cannot deal with these lawyers anymore. They make me want to rage out like Alanis Morissette when she was getting dumped by Dave Coulier, which is gross because he used to do that chipmunk guy. And now I can't look at a, Woody Woodchuck without feeling weird and wanting to sing You Ought to Know. Oh, Uncle Fester, you're right. It wasn't Lurch.
You can come on up. You want to put your book down or not? Either way. Thank you. You raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the
That is
testimony you're about to
awesome.
give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Look, if we were going to, break it down, I was always on team Uncle Jesse. I could never understand why anyone would be on team Uncle Joey. I still don't get it. That being said, I'm glad he's cancer-free, and he should have been nicer to Alanis. Actually, I'm glad he was a dick to Alanis Morissette, because then she went on to write Angry Girl music that got me through high school. Her and Tori Amos. Thank you, all the men who were dicks to these women, because they got me through high school. I congratulate your dickitude. It led to great creations. Don't know where I was going with that.
you.
Janet Reno?
And once you
I thought she had died. How did she come back? Okay.
are settled in, I'll have you tell us your full name and spell the last, please, and you can move the microphone.
She
right
doesn't
near
need
your
to.
mouth
It's
so the jury can
Janet
hear you.
Reno.
Thank you.
My name is Ann Hunt, H-U-N-T.
Ms. Ivy?
Not Anne Hunt. I mean, at least it wasn't Karen Hunt. Yes, DK Cripple, I am sorry to break this to you, but it is alleged that Alanis Morissette wrote about giving Dave Coulier a mouth hug in a movie theater. He is the one that broke her heart. If you have seen Alanis Morissette videos from Canada where she's happy, she met Dave Coulier and then they turn into Angry Girl music. Now, again, I'm all for it because through her pain we got beautiful music, but dear God, Janet Reno. I could never tell a lie to this woman.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Hunt, what's your current occupation?
I am a retired forensic scientist from the Michigan State Police Forensic Laboratory.
And how long were you with the Michigan State Police?
I began my career with the Michigan State Police in 1987, and I retired in 2021.
So you were with them that entire time?
I was.
And what was did you have different positions or just the one position?
Initially, I was a serologist, which I was a forensic scientist that analyzed blood and other body fluids. And in 1999, we began DNA analysis at the Grand Rapids Laboratory, and I performed DNA analysis for the remainder of my career.
And you said, so your duties and responsibilities then were for the testing of DNA?
Most of them. I did continue to do serology testing throughout my career as well.
Every time I think of it, just, nuh-uh. No, I'm gonna, look, I reject that reality. I insert my own, and it was Uncle Jesse. Screw that. Reality can't suck that much. Well, I mean, it can, but when I, put in my own headcanon, it was Uncle Joey. You're welcome, everyone. I mean, it does make more sense than, it was Uncle Jesse, not Joey. Just ew, all around.
So what would you say are your specific areas of expertise?
I've been qualified as an expert in the fields of serology and DNA analysis.
And what is your formal education?
I have a Bachelor of Science degree from Michigan Technological University in Houghton, Michigan. I worked as a medical technologist in a hospital laboratory for 4 years, and then I became employed with the Michigan State Police, where I completed internship, continuing education, and other training through the Michigan State Police and external agencies.
Can you give the jury an idea of how many cases you've worked on for DNA analysis?
When I retired, I had worked over 10,000 cases. Those were both serology and DNA.
DK Cripple, just imagine it was Brad Pitt. Look, Alanis, beautiful Alanis with Uncle Joey. Look, I know there are women out there to which Uncle Joey will appeal. I get it. Different strokes for different folks. I get it. I just don't understand it. It's like furries. I want to ask questions. I don't get it. It doesn't make sense to me. I want to understand. Alanis, call me. I want to understand. Tell me how Uncle Joey seduced you, because were you high? Were you real high? I have questions. I have all the questions. Just email me, Alanis, and it'll be great. I won't tell nobody except for my best friends on the internets. But just it'll be great. You will feel so free once you answer all my questions, because I think you kind of owe it to us, your fans, to explain-orate yourself. Let's see. Is Febreze required? Also, how do you come up with your whole persona? This is going to have to be a whole other... Look, I'm going to get sidetracked and I'm going to be on here until 1 o'clock, and then tomorrow ain't going to happen. So we will hold for a furry stream because I have all the questions. To be fair, it's probably be better if we never knew who it was, but I had heard rumors that it was Uncle Joey, and ever since then, it's been like, ick. All right, let's go back to not Janet Reno.
In the field of DNA alone, I would estimate I worked probably 4,000 cases with tens of thousands of samples involved in those cases.
And have you testified as an expert in court before?
Yes, I have.
How many different counties have you been in testifying?
We cover the whole west side of the state of Michigan and the Upper Peninsula. I've testified in, I would say, 25 counties throughout the state of Michigan. I've also testified in Indiana on federal cases as well.
And in those cases that you testified, you were then admitted as an expert?
I have been, yes.
And as part of your preparation for today, did you give me your current curriculum vitae?
I did.
And this has all your training, education, and experience on it?
That's correct.
I'm gonna, Your Honor, may I approach? I'm gonna show you what's marked as People's Exhibit number 14. Do you recognize that?
I do believe I gave you a corrected version because I have till the present and I'm not working anymore from 2021.
I'm going to show you the corrected CV with a different front page. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do. People's Exhibit 14 is a copy of my curriculum vitae, which lists my work experience, registrations in societies, my education, and it compiles the list of training and continuing education I participated in throughout my career.
Your Honor, the people would move to admit People's Exhibit 14 into evidence at this time.
No objection, Your Honor.
Court will receive Exhibit 14.
And we'd also move to admit Ms. Hunt as an expert in serology and DNA analysis.
No objection.
Will receive her testimony.
Enunciate her name very carefully because it sounded like Cahoon, Miss Cahoon, and not Miss Hunt. Now, that being said, it's a good thing she wasn't named like Michaela Hunt, because that could have been ugly. Now I'm going to try to figure out a way to make a girl name, say the Mike Hunt, sort of, you know, the things I think about at 3 a.m. I will get
As an
back to
expert
you.
in those areas.
She is an expert. Believe her.
I'm going to start with just kind of the basics of when you receive a sample for analysis. Can you walk the jury through kind of what you first do when you receive it?
Usually if it's for serology, an agency will bring in samples that they want analyzed for DNA. Those are logged into the front office desk with a specific laboratory number assigned to that complaint number from the agency. That lab number follows through for the entirety of the case. The evidence is placed in a cold storage vault until which time it is analyzed for serology. If samples are prepared for DNA analysis, those samples are placed in frozen storage until which time a DNA analyst would remove those samples from frozen storage to begin the DNA procedure.
And I think you've alluded to it a little bit, but what steps are taken to ensure the integrity of that evidence?
The integrity of the evidence, first it's brought into the laboratory in a sealed condition so that it would be evident if anything was tampered with. Then it is placed in cold storage to preserve the evidence. As far as during the actual analysis, we take steps to ensure that there's no contamination of any of the samples. We would wear gloves, gowns, masks, clean our tools in between each sample, clean the bench tops between each sample so that all the evidence is preserved in its condition. The evidence is only taken out one item at a time and processed, and the knowns are never processed before any evidentiary samples so as not to cross-contaminate a known sample with an evidence sample.
What are population frequencies?
Population frequencies are estimates of the frequency of how common a type. In the field of DNA, we call them alleles, how common those types would be in the population.
So is it with how common that particular sample type would be?
It's Since alleles or the types are genetically inherited, we have population databases that would give the frequency of how often those types are seen in the population. And when we are performing DNA analysis and giving a statistical estimate relating to those populations, we can do a calculation to see how common the profile of a whole would be in the population.
And then how are those estimates calculated?
There's mathematical calculations for.
Okay, we're skipping the math and the population.
We are looking at different areas of the DNA molecule that show high variability, different 0.5% of the DNA that shows that variability.
Okay, we're gonna get to where they show her the
Also lists
paper with
evidence
the DNA.
and the known sample that I received.
Ms. Dr. Bear, has that been altered or changed in any way since you reviewed it?
No.
Your Honor, people would move to admit People's Exhibit number 15 into evidence at this time.
No objection.
Court will receive 15.
Permission to publish, Your Honor?
You may.
So I'm going to put up now page 1 of your lab report, and I'm going to have you just describe to the jury then what we're looking at on page 1. And for the record, the report is 2 pages.
Yes. At the very top of the page 1 is the laboratory number, the investigating officer, the agency complaint number, our record number, date and time it was received in the laboratory, and the date that the report was completed. It lists nature of the offense as what file class the evidence came in under. Lists the victim's name as Stermer, Todd Joseph. And then I have evidence received, which are assigned a specific item number. 30196-07-7AD is a known reference sample from Todd Stermer. 30196-07-7-BD was identified to me as LV1 bumper fascia.
Good luck modding.
30196-07-7-CD.
No whammies, just, oh gosh, what was it? No whammies, just money. I don't know. I don't remember what that show was, but I loved the Whammy show. Like, I don't know. I think I need to find it on YouTube. I think I could be amused by the colors and the lights all the time. Bring back the Whammy show. That was a great show. I'd host it. I'd be great. Game Show Network, if we want to bring back American Gladiators and the Whammy show, please give me a call. I'll have my people talk to your people. I'm fairly cheap. Just, keep me in wigs and make sure my kids get through college or vocational school. And I can buy a couple things about Sailor Moon. But really, I'm kind of cheap compared to all the stuck-up people. And people would watch me. Maybe. Give me a call.
Was identified as LV-3 metal box on underside. 30196-07-7-DD was identified to me as item LV-5 driver's side U-bolts, and 30196-07-7-ED was identified to me as item LV-6 spare tire.
And then is the next section the results of your examination?
The results of examination lists that I extracted the DNA and used what's called polymerase chain reaction to look at those specific areas of the DNA molecule as they're listed on the results of the examination.
And then were you able to form a conclusion based on your examination?
Yes, I was.
And that conclusion is listed on there as well?
Yes.
And could you then state for the jury what your conclusion was with regard to these samples?
I determined that the DNA profile from the evidentiary samples, 7BD, 7CD, 7DD, and 7ED, that is the bumper fascia, the metal box on the underside, the driver's side U-bolts, and the spare tire, the DNA profile from those evidentiary samples matched the DNA profile obtained from the known sample of Todd Stermer.
I'm going to go to page 2. Could you go through this section and what this means for the jury?
On page 2, I reported all population statistics. Anytime there's association made, a probative association made, we provide a population statistic, which will put a weight to the match or the inclusion of those samples. So in this case, I did a population statistic for the 4 evidentiary samples I received. The way we report it out is the probability of selecting an unrelated individual, unrelated to Todd Stermer, that would match those samples for the Caucasian database would be 1 in 13.7 quadrillion. For the African American database, 1 in 1.1 quintillion, and for Hispanics, 1 in 214.6 quadrillion.
So just to simplify that a little bit, if I just focus on the Caucasian equation there, it's 1 in 13.7
Caucasian equation sounds like a really not good band. That being said, it does rhyme.
quadrillion.
Correct.
And that would be then to say that the individual would have that chance of matching Todd's DNA as a Caucasian?
It's not saying that there is
We'll have a Caucasian quadration where all population will grow. I love this Dalmatian song. I don't know why that popped into my head, but there you go. Welcome to the crazy train that is most thought process.
one person in 13.7 quadrillion. It's saying that the probability of selecting an unrelated individual out of the population that would match those DNA profiles from the evidentiary samples would be 1 in 13.7 quadrillion.
And so I have a hard time imagining what quadrillion is. Could you tell me that's a 1 with how many zeros after it?
1 quadrillion would be 15 zeros.
And so here we're looking at 13.7 quadrillion.
So it would be 137 and 14 zeros.
After that. And so based on the population statistics and your analysis and your examination, that led to your conclusion that those 4 samples, unknown samples, matched the known sample of Todd Stermer.
That's correct.
I have no further questions for this witness, Your Honor. Thank you.
Your Honor, we would have agreed that that was Todd Stermer's DNA, all he had to do was ask. So I don't have any. I do have one question, 2 questions.
Just continue the commentary, please.
I will.
Okay. You have a question for the witness?
I do.
Thank you.
You know what caused the fire?
I do not.
You know where the fire started in the house?
I do not.
Thank you.
Okay. Jury, do you have any questions of her? No? Thank you. May she be excused from her subpoena,
I
counsel?
ask that you please be excused, Your Honor.
Maybe excuse me. Your Honor.
Okay. Thank you. I'll take your, the exhibit that's up there. Thank you. Ms. Lundy, you may call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Please call Troy Ernst to the stand, please.
All right, his name is Troy. He's coming up. He does seem to have he might be the lead investigator. He has that sort of, well, he has that James Spader hairline. Blacklisted.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Thank you. Please have a seat, and once you get settled in, we'll have you move the microphone right up to your mouth so the jury can hear you, and tell us your full name and spell the last, please.
My name is Troy Ernst, E-R-N-S-T.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Ernst, what is your current occupation?
I'm a forensic scientist with the Michigan State Police in the Grand Rapids Forensic Laboratory.
And how long have you been in that?
Yeah, I'm waiting for her to do a... Mr. Jackson, could you keep the commentary down? Now, Mr. Lally, if you don't raise your voice, we're going to have to cut off the fans, and it is hot in here. I haven't had my White Claw, and I'm going to get a little bitchy. So how about you two simmer?
In that position?
For 26 years.
Actually, Judge Canyon, it would be basta.
What duties have you been assigned to in that position?
I'm a forensic scientist in the Trace Evidence Unit. As part of that, I receive evidence involved in criminal investigations, analyze the evidence, write reports, and when called upon, testify to those results.
Does trace evidence include evidence pertaining to fires?
Yes, fire debris or ignitable liquid residue testing.
So that's all part of trace evidence.
It is.
What type of education do you have for this position?
I have a bachelor's degree in chemistry.
Now, I would expect that the defense is going to highly scrutinize this test. Now, from their opening statement, I know that there was a test that was disputed, especially with the accelerant liquid. So I do wonder if this is going to be, you know, one of the more highly contested, snarky witnesses, or at least the defense is going to approach them as assholes. I mean, at this point, let's call a spade a spade.
From Michigan State University. Also a master's degree in criminal justice with a specialization in forensic science, also from Michigan State.
What type of training then do you need on top of your formal education?
The training that I've received has been mostly on-the-job training, training under senior analysts in the different examinations that I perform, and also external training going for either a single day or up to a week-long training on the different instruments that I use and the different types of evidence I analyze.
And then how long have you worked in Trace Evidence Unit?
26 years.
26 years. And have you been qualified as an expert in trace evidence and in fire scene analysis?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So that was Bev when she was, watching Canon Guy. Bev definitely did a see me in chambers kind of look. And of course, I muted myself. It's, it's not a stream unless maybe this is Jeff shining down upon us because, it wasn't a stream unless he had boomered it just a bit. So in the spirit of Jeff, I muted myself for just a bit, for science. It is now officially a stream. Okay, folks, we might actually be getting to a point. These seem to be the clothes that either, not Bev, for the love of Lemmy, Linda was wearing or Todd was wearing. So we might be actually getting to a nexus in this case. We might be actually getting to a fact beyond, no one knows how the fire started.
And do you recognize this item?
I can see that I have my initials on here. I don't see any other tags of mine on here right now.
Sorry, did you say you can't identify it?
I recognize my initials are inside of the package, but I don't have any of my item number showing right now on this package.
If we opened the package, would you be able to read it?
Possibly, yes.
I'm going to take it back from you.
So I will say this is something new and interesting I have noticed. In the past, we've had to deal with the paper crinkle bags. It seems like here in this case and in the Stacy Rodriguez case, they've started to use these vacuum seal bags. So I don't know if that's something new or if you have dry evidence, you can put it in plastic, seal bags. I'm not quite sure. It's a trend that I've noticed in the last two cases. So there you go.
And have the deputy, just for the record to be clear, I'll have the deputy then open the sealed package. I'm going to give you a pair of gloves as well, and you can take that out and see if you can read any of the markings. Identify it with anything.
Don't get too excited, y'all.
Yes, on this I see it's my item number 5.
And what is that the generic name for?
It's a red sweatshirt.
And Your Honor, just not so I don't confuse the record, I'm going to go ahead and ask the court to admit these and then I'll continue. People would move to admit People's Exhibit number 19, number 18, number 17, and number 20 into evidence at this time.
Any objection? No? No objection?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Receive those into evidence.
Sorry, I keep having them up on my- I'm going to show you what's been marked then as People's Proposed Exhibit number 21. And you recognize this item?
Yes, my item number is 6 on this one. And it is shirt and towels.
Your Honor, people would move to admit People's Exhibit 21 into evidence at this time.
Objection or
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
No, no.
No objection, okay, we'll receive 21.
And I'm going to show you what's been marked as 22, People's Exhibit 22, brown shirt. Do you recognize this item?
This one is my item number 7. And it is a brown shirt.
Your Honor, people would move to admit People's Exhibit number 22 into evidence.
Any objection, difference? Okay, court will receive exhibit 22.
Hey guys, I am going to stop it here because I am needed for feral parole and probation and warden, shower time doing. So I am going to go make sure that feral boy children wash their bodies with soap and water and actually get into the shower, which is something that they have to be reminded to do. Because they seem to be extra feral tonight. So I will be doing that. Thank you. Sorry about the abrupt end, and we should be able to catch up tomorrow morning. Hopefully we'll do this. It looks like we're entering a lot of evidence, and I want to be able to pay attention when we're doing it, because it seems like we're actually getting to the case. So I will see you guys tomorrow for Mornings with Mo at 8 a.m. and then the trial. I will see you guys in a little bit. Bye.